Gospel according to Matthew. Some of the scribes and Pharisees said to Jesus, "Teacher, we wish to see a sign from you." He said to them in reply, "An evil and unfaithful generation seeks a sign, but no sign will be given it, except the sign of Jonah, the prophet. Just as Jonah was in the belly of the whale 3 days and 3 nights, so will the Son of Man be in the heart of the earth 3 days and 3 nights. At the judgment, the men of Nineveh will arise with this generation and condemn it, because they repented the preaching of Jonah. And there is something greater than Jonah here. At the judgment, the queen of the south will arise with this generation and condemn it, because she came from the ends of the earth to hear the wisdom of Solomon. And there is something greater than Solomon here." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
So one of the things that the early church fathers, when they spoke about the gospel, one of the things they talked about was how the Old Testament was a prefiguration of the New Testament. And they famously said that the wonders of God, or the Mirabilia Dei, right, is the Latin phrase. They said that those prefigured the sacraments in the New Covenant. So in the Old Covenant, God performed all these different mighty miracles, and in the New Covenant, He performs these mighty miracles through the church and through her sacraments. And so for the early Christians, baptism was an extremely significant event. Baptism was when we were freed from our tyranny to the devil. Baptism was when we were freed from original sin. Baptism was when we were baptized into Christ and made members of the church and set on a path towards the promised land of heaven. And so, of course, the early church fathers, they saw one of the great types of baptism as this crossing of the Red Sea. Every year at the Easter Vigil, there is a number of Old Testament readings that recount salvation history. And one of the required readings every year is Exodus 14, the crossing of the Red Sea. That those who are baptized at the Easter Vigil are freed from their slavery to the devil, just as the Israelites were freed from their slavery to Pharaoh by means of water. And God achieves victory for those who are baptized, just as He achieved victory for the Israelites over Pharaoh and his chariots. The crossing of the Red Sea is one of the most striking miracles of the Old Testament. It is one of the greatest prefigurations of the sacrament of baptism. And as we continue to read through this book of Exodus, we should be paying attention, because out of all the books of the Bible, the early church fathers saw the book of Exodus as a prefiguration of what Christ came to accomplish. As a matter of fact, if you pay attention to the timeline of the Exodus, it matches up with early church history. That Christ died and rose during the feast of Passover, right, just as the Israelites had their original Passover. 50 days after Christ's resurrection was the Feast of Pentecost, just as the Israelites had their original Feast of Pentecost at Mount Sinai. And even 40 years later, when the Israelites crossed into the Promised Land, finally, that also happens to match up with when Jerusalem was destroyed in 70 AD. There's all sorts of things about the Exodus that, if you're paying attention, you can see how they prefigure the mysteries of the church and even events in church history.